Haunted House Studios presents Somnarium. Episode 3, The Winning Streak, Part 2. Alright, Part 2. When I was reading this last time, the drive started seeking like crazy, and then the file just dropped, like it yanked a cord on me on purpose. I know how that sounds, but this thing's been acting like it has a mind of its own since I plugged it in. Like it decides what I get to hear and when. Anyway, I've got it open again now, same folder, the rest of it's still here. So, picking up where it cut out, the rest of the sleep diary. Sunday, January 26th, 2003. I didn't even realize I was dreaming at first. I was already holding the clipboard, pen in my hand, standing at the desk like I'd been there all day. The waiting room was quieter tonight. No magazines, no small talk, just that fluorescent hum and the door with the frosted window sitting there like an accusation. Somewhere behind it, the drill whined. Not loud, just constant, patient. Like it didn't need me to hit it to keep going. Mr. Hargrove. I looked up, and the receptionist didn't look back. She just pushed the form toward me with one finger, like she didn't want to touch it. I started writing, and that's when I noticed that the paper already had indentations in it. Deep grooves, like someone had filled it out with too much pressure. My name, my address, my handwriting. All the right shapes, but not written by me. Like I was just tracing what had already been decided. Please take a seat and wait until we call your name. I walk back, passing that picture on the wall again. I look, I stare. I bring my face so close to the glass I can see my own breath fog it. The faces are still blurred, the nameplate is still there. And then, I could have sworn the man in the center, Dr. Bryan, winked at me. I jolt awake with my jaw sore from clenching. It takes me a second to remember it's Sunday, which means the bank is closed, the branch is closed. The people who can authorize anything are gone, so even if I wanted to force the hold off today, I can't. So, of course, today is the day something else happens. Around mid-morning, I get a call about one of the condos I rent out. The tenant's on the phone, panicking, talking over herself. Water everywhere, ceiling, it won't stop. Then she says the words that make my stomach drop. The unit below is affected too. It's a burst pipe, or a leak, or some building level failure that nobody wants to take responsibility for. The tenant says the building manager is on his way. I know what that means. It means nobody's coming until you make it their problem. So I go. I spent the entire day in that building, hallways that smell like wet plaster, carpets darkening as the water spreads. People standing around pointing at the ceiling like that's action. A building manager explaining process. A contractor saying he can't start without approval. An insurance rep insisting on documentation. Everyone waiting for someone else to go first. And I'm the only one who can't afford waiting. So I push, I call, I threaten, I make it loud enough that they have to move. I get shut-off valves found. I get a plumber on site, I get photos taken, reports written, signatures collected. I get a tenant relocated for the night. I get the manager to admit, carefully, verbally, never in writing, that this isn't my fault. By the time it's handled, it's dark out again, and I feel like I've swallowed grit. I drive home, and I can't stop clenching. Even in the car, even alone, my teeth are locked like I'm still arguing with someone. Halfway there, I get that jolt again. Sharp, wrong, deep in the back of my mouth. Another molar. I press it with my tongue and it shifts. Not much, just enough. My hands tighten on the wheel so hard my knuckles hurt. I get home faster than I should. Straight to the bathroom, straight to the big mirror over the sink. I pull my cheek back and I see it, not falling out, but loose. Angry, aching like it's pulsing with its own heartbeat. I can barely touch it with my tongue without flinching, and I don't have the patience for this. Not tonight, not after today. I don't even think this time. Toolbox, pliers, mirror. I pull. It hurts like hell, and then it doesn't. That sweet, sick release. The moment the pain stops being inside my head. Blood in the sink, another tooth in my hand. Another problem solved that should not be solvable this way. I rinse my mouth and stare at myself until my eyes stop looking like mine. And tomorrow, the bank will be open again. Monday, January 27th, 2003. Last night the dream changed. Same waiting room, same hard chairs, same magazines, same door with a little frosted window, same drill screaming behind it like it was alive. Mr. Hargrove. This time, when my name got called, I didn't go to the reception desk. I went through the door. The room on the other side was too bright, too clean, that clinical white that made you feel like you were dirty just for existing. The drill was louder in there, close enough to feel it in your teeth, and the chair was waiting, reclined, open, center of the room like it was the only place you were allowed to be. And I sat in it immediately. Instinct, like protocol, like there was a process and I'd already been routed this far. So of course, I took my seat. Of course I didn't ask why. Of course I didn't argue. You don't argue with a process, you complete it. Then I noticed I was strapped in. Not tight, not dramatic, just the kind of restraint that said you were being processed. And behind the chair was a man in a doctor's coat. Dr. Bryan. Up close, his face still didn't sit right, like my brain couldn't hold the details, but I knew it was him the way you know a name when you've seen it stamped enough times. He didn't say hello, he didn't ask questions, he just looked at me like I was a form he'd already decided how to file. And then, he smiled. And then I jolted awake with my jaw sore from clenching, like always. I was back in court today, and here's the thing, I won, completely. Opposing counsel tried to grandstand, the judge didn't buy it. I didn't even have to raise my voice. It was surgical, clean. You must have seen it, they were outside with cameras again, asking questions like it was a spectacle. I gave them what they wanted, a quote, a smile. I walked out of that building with my name in people's mouths, and then I checked my phone. Missed call from the bank. Missed call from the building manager about the water leak, the same calm voice as everyone else, leaving the same kind of message, urgent, time sensitive, please call back. And another missed call from my office, from Price. No voicemail. Which was worse than a voicemail, because if Price was calling and not leaving a message, it meant it was either already burning or about to. I called the bank back first. Automated maze, verification, hold music, the same word again. Review. I didn't even get a person, just an email telling me to come in with identification. I called the building manager. He started talking about liability and downstairs damage, and insurance won't proceed without statements. Another form, another signature, another opportunity for someone to slide the responsibility onto me. And then I called Price. He finally answered, and he was already talking fast, like he was trying to get ahead of the damage. Some junior associate had run his mouth to a reporter, something about a client, something confidential. It wasn't even a real scandal yet, but it was close enough that you could smell it. And because I was a partner, it became my problem to contain. My job to make it disappear before it grew teeth. So, I was juggling 3 fires at once. Bank, property, firm, and every single one of them had a process, a required sequence, steps you weren't allowed to skip. People who couldn't help until you'd been properly routed. I could feel myself getting sharper, shorter, meaner. I kept catching myself clenching so hard my teeth ached. And I still didn't stop. Stopping felt like surrender, and surrender felt like losing. By the time I got home, it was dark. I was still in my suit, I hadn't eaten, I could taste blood again, and I didn't know when it started. I was in the bathroom brushing my teeth like that was going to restore order. Then I felt it. Not a molar this time. A front tooth. one of the ones people actually see, a small shift when I touched it with my tongue, a sick little give like it wasn't anchored the way it had been yesterday. My stomach turned. My first thought wasn't pain, it was humiliation. I leaned into the mirror and stared at myself, pulling my lip back, checking it from every angle like there was a version where this wasn't happening. It ached, it throbbed, and the more I focused on it, the louder it got, until it was the only thing in my head, and I couldn't leave it there. I couldn't go to court tomorrow with a loose front tooth. I couldn't talk to clients. I couldn't smile for cameras. I couldn't let this show. So I opened the toolbox again, and I didn't even let myself think the word insane. I grabbed the pliers, and I pulled. Tuesday, January 28th, 2003. Pages unreadable. Record entirely covered in blood. Newspaper clipping. Date, January 29th, 2003. High-profile lawyer found dead in penthouse bathroom. A prominent corporate attorney was found dead late Tuesday night in the bathroom of his downtown penthouse, according to police. Richard Hargrove, a senior partner at Hargrove & Price Attorneys at Law, was discovered after building security conducted a welfare check when he failed to respond to repeated calls and messages throughout the day. Authorities said Hargrove was found slumped on the bathroom floor beside the sink. Investigators described the scene as disturbing, noting significant blood loss and the presence of a pair of pliers believed to have been used to inflict injuries. According to officials familiar with the early findings, Hargrove's mouth had been violently and completely stripped of teeth. Investigators recovered a number of teeth from the bathroom area, with additional remains believed to have been washed into the sink and surrounding fixtures. Police declined to provide further detail pending a full post-mortem examination, but confirmed there were no immediate signs of forced entry or an altercation. Emergency responders pronounced Hargrove dead at the scene. Hargrove is widely known for a recent string of courtroom victories, including a highly publicized case earlier this month that drew media attention outside the courthouse. Colleagues described him as relentless, brilliant, and demanding, with one fellow attorney calling him the kind of man who didn't accept the word no. A spokesperson for Hargrove & Price said the firm was shocked and devastated and asked for privacy. Police said the death is not currently being treated as suspicious, though the investigation remains ongoing. Investigators also noted Hargrove had a documented medical history that may have complicated blood loss, though officials emphasized it is too early to determine whether that contributed to his death. The medical examiner's office will confirm an official cause in the coming days. Patient Record Addendum. Patient Richard Hargrove. Date January 29, 2003. Subject Police contact, press reporting of patient death. The case was initially accepted as a priority intake accommodated following a personal request from an acquaintance. Standard written intake was not received prior to the first appointment. Intake was taken in clinic by staff. On January 29th, I was contacted in person by investigators regarding Mr. Hargrove. Detective Rayner led the interview. His partner remained largely silent and took notes. They reported no evidence of forced entry or a struggle at the residence and stated the circumstances suggested an acute psychiatric crisis rather than foul play. They located the patient's sleep diary on the bathroom floor with my clinic card attached. They advised the final entry, Tuesday, was largely unreadable due to blood saturation. I am recording this addendum after reviewing the diary pages provided and after reading press coverage indicating Mr. Hargrove was found deceased in his residence. Mr. Hargrove presented as overtly arrogant and highly resistant to routine clinical procedure, repeatedly attempting to control the pace and content of assessment. He framed distress as an external inconvenience to be solved, expressed contempt for delay, and demonstrated an extreme intolerance for uncertainty, particularly any status described as pending, processing, or under review. Despite continued occupational function and public success, his narrative showed escalating instability outside of professional settings. Increased monitoring, repeated verification, persistent escalation of minor obstacles, and an inability to disengage. The diary reflects a tightening loop of corrective behavior performed for immediate relief. I was unable to provide investigators with any additional practical insight beyond what was documented in the clinical record, namely, the patient's long-standing and worsening control fixation, his inability to tolerate unresolved states, and his tendency to respond to distress by forcefully correcting the perceived problem rather than tolerating it. Of particular concern, the diary indicates progression from bruxism and jaw pain to deliberate extraction of his own teeth. The force required to remove a tooth is considerable. The psychological threshold required to override pain avoidance is higher still. In a patient whose identity and functioning are organized around control and image, this represents severe distress and impaired judgment. Press reporting referenced significant blood loss. Mr. Hargrove reported a medical history consistent with anticoagulation for a cardiac condition, details incompletely documented. If accurate, this would have increased the risk of uncontrolled bleeding following oral trauma. This case underscores the danger of equating public function with private stability. Mr. Hargrove's continued professional wins likely reinforced the very patterns that were accelerating his deterioration and delayed any possibility of tolerating uncertainty long enough for intervention to take hold. Looking back, the combination of prolonged sleep loss and compulsive fixing behavior should have been treated as more urgent than his outward functioning suggested. File closed. Another file closed, another bad ending, and I'm starting to wonder if that's what this drive is. An archive of all the times Dr. Renwyck couldn't help, couldn't save someone, or didn't get the chance. He won every fight that didn't matter and still couldn't stop it. It felt like the system had decided he was the problem. Can you imagine how far you need to be pushed to pull your own teeth? No further material recovered.